Hello everyone, welcome to GIS Man. I'm Miles Lee. Long time no see because I was a little bit busy and I haven't uploaded videos to my channel in the last couple of months. And today I'm lucky, it's the Australia public holiday, so I'm a little bit free to come here to share with you some of my works and projects recently. And some of my friends recently, or even some of my colleagues, asked me about how to implement and how to do the widgets communications in ArcGIS Experience Builder. That's a very good question, I think, because if you look at the tutorials on introductions on ArcGIS Experience Builder's official website, it usually talks about how to do the single widgets development, but seldom talks about widgets communications among various widgets in an application. And even though you look at the official introduction, it introduces you some ways, of course, but they are too difficult for the beginner. Like, for example, it teach you how to use the data source level communication, and also say using the Redux store, establish your own Redux. I mean, that is just too complex and too complicated for the beginner of ArcGIS Experience Builder, and also even for the advanced users like us. It takes your time to do it. Okay, so during my real fight, okay, I call it real fight, I found a very easy way to do that, just using the widget states and then combine with the React.js lifecycle functions to do it. Here in the official website, it said using the widget state, but however, its method is quite complex, and then how to receive it also a little bit complex. And we don't need to use this. We just need to use part of it and combine with our React.js lifecycle functions to do it very easily. It's something like a trick, okay? So let's get started. Before we get started, I would like to show you why the widgets communications is important and useful in our daily work. This is my recent works for an organization. So here we have the requirements that we do some initial filtering and query in our first widgets, and then the result sends to the second widgets, and then the second widgets further do some calculations and then send the reports to the third widgets. So here we have a multiple widgets communications. I would like to show you how it works. So firstly, I mean, here we have a lot of conditions in our first widgets. I randomly choose some of them, for example, these three, and then state is NSW, and LGA, I randomly choose a black time, okay? And then I click confirm and select. So what you can see, the second widget got the result after the query of the first widgets, and then do the further calculation, and then the third widgets also got the results. So the message is transferred from the first widgets to the second one, and then from the second one to the third one. Here is the very typical scenarios of the widgets communication. I can do another example. For example, I choose the station. Wait a sec, I just choose an LGA, or maybe I clean it and then select again. Okay, select these conditions, and then I select a station. Darlinghurst is a very rich place of Sydney. It's one of the richest places in Sydney, I think. I mean, near this harbour area, okay? I just click the select and confirm and don't blink. The results will be changed on the second widget as well as the third widget. So I click confirm and select. So what you can see, the result is submit and transform to the second widget, send to the second widget, and then the second widget do the further calculation and then send the results to the third widget. Okay, So here are multiple widgets communications. So let's make a simple example to show how this works. Okay. So right here, I prepare a simple application as an example. We are going to write two widgets. One is the sender, one is the receiver. In the sender, we are going to put an input box, which allows the users to write something, and then we will have a button. And when the user click the button, it will send the input box context to the receiver, and then the receiver will get the message and show it on its panel. Okay, so this is how we decided, and let's see how we do this. So firstly, we will come to our sender. Okay, so firstly, we will come to our sender. And then the first thing, of course, as usual, we will need to establish our UI. So now we will have an input. Okay, we will have an input box, and we will also have a button. Okay, button. And then we will need to write something in the input box. For example, the ID, I just give a random ID like test1. And then the type, of course, it will be, for example, the text area. Okay. What else? We will need to have some values. The value will be bind to the state because as what I talked in my previous video, in React.js, the state control everything. The state can bind to the HTML, can control the internal logics. So now the value will be bind to the state. We will write it later. And later on, we will have an onChange function. Whenever the text change in our input box, it will change the state. Okay, so I will also write it later here. And we will also have a style. I have already defined some styles right here. For example, the text area style, and then I can just write it here. Okay, and then in our value, as what we said, we will need to bind it with our state. So firstly, we will need to define the state in our constructor functions. So we write a state here. Of course, this is one way to write a state. If you use the stateless React.js, you can use the useState hook to hook it, okay? But now we use a more traditional way, which is more understandable to most of the people. So in our state, what I'm going to do is to write the input text. We need to give an initial value. Probably not. Yeah, probably not. We just write it as an empty. Okay. And then when we define it right here, we can go back to bind it. It's called state.input text. Okay. And then in our onChange function, we will need to bind it with an onChange function. We can say onTextChange. Okay. And of course, we haven't defined it yet. And then we can just define it on top of our render block. So now we will write an arrow function right here. Okay, so the parameter will be the events. And then whenever we change the value, whenever we change the value, we will get the value from the event target value and then set it in our state. Okay, so now we have the event target value, and then what we need to do is just to give it to a variable test. Okay, and then in our state we will need to set our state input text, what we just defined on top. Okay, with this change input value. Okay, so this is the input box, and then we need to have a button to send out the message. Okay, so we give the button a class name. What do I give? Like send button. Okay, and then the type, whatever, we have lots of type, primary, secondary. I just give it as a primary. This is just define a color, which is not that important. You can also look at my previous videos if you are interested in the UI design. And also we have a size, we have a large and small. I just give it a large. And then the style, we got the button style right here. It's predefined as well. So the last thing is on click. When we click on the box, when we click on the button, it will trigger our functions on. It will trigger our functions. We haven't defined it right here yet, but we will do it right now. Okay, the on click functions we can say send message. Okay, it's called send message. So we can define the send message functions right here, which is also an arrow function. Okay, which is also an arrow function. So here is the most important thing of this sender widgets. So what we are going to do is when we click the button, it will send out the message to the second widgets, to our receiver widgets. Okay, so we need to know the receiver widgets ID, and then we will need to define the variables and also the value of these variables. We will need to use the impact dispatch function, which is in our React.js properties of the ArcGIS Experience Builder. Okay, so now we will need to send out our widgets state message. Okay, it's called widget state property change. Okay, so now we need to send out our message to the widget receiver. For example, I will define it later. I just hardcode it here to let you guys understand it more carefully. So, and then we will need to define the message name. This is called message name. I will also write it later. And here is the message value. Okay, so here the logic is when we click the button, it will trigger this function. This function will dispatch a message, send a message to the receiver widgets by the receiver widgets ID, and then the message is with a message name, and it got a value. Okay, so later on the receiver widgets can get this message by the message name and then retrieve and extract its value. Okay, this is how it works. So in order to write our widgets ID, we need to know about our receiver widgets ID. So we can find it right here. Yeah, this is widgets 19. How to do that is also very easy actually. So you just need to write this in your receiver widgets, this property, okay, dot widget ID, which gets its own widget ID. So we already know the widgets ID is widgets ID 19. We can write it here. But if you want to be more elegant in your code, you can define some variables, which is, for example, like widget IDs. You define the variables on top of your class, and then assign it as a value. For example, widgets ID, it will be an object. And then inside the object, we call it recipient. Is it spelling like this? I'm not sure. Should be okay, yeah, recipient. And then the widget is called widgets-19, right? What we just know from a panel. Okay, so right here we can dispatch the message and send the message to the receiver widget, which is id dot recipient. Okay, and then the message name we can just randomly give it whatever. I can call it like for example, I can call it like text context. Okay, and then the value, because the input box is bind with our state. Okay, and whenever it's changed, the state is changed. Okay, so we will need to send out the message value, and the message value will be the state bind value with the input box. This will be the state.input text. So now we have already completed the most important part of the sender widget. We send the message to our second widget, and then with the variable name, text content, and the context will be the state input text, which is coming from our input box. Okay, so what we can see right here, we just refresh our application to see how it goes. It's something like this. Okay, I don't know why. Okay, we haven't give you a name of our button. Okay, we just give you a name called send, and then let's take a look again. So here is our first widget. Later on, when we type something here, we will send a message to the second widget, and then the second widget need to receive it and extract the context, and then to display it and render it on its HTML. Okay, so we will do the receiver later. So now what we are going to do is go to our receiver widgets. So firstly, we need to put a display box right here. We can do it with the label tag or just with the H4 text, probably. Whatever. I mean, it just gives it a place to display the results from the first widget. Okay. So here, I mean, it will also bind with the state later, because as what I said, in React.js, the HTML is bind with the state. The state is taught with the logics. So with the state, you can do many things. The data binding style programming. Okay. So okay. So firstly, we can define the state in our constructor. For example, I write it like a state, okay, and then what I should give it, receive text. Is it that good? For example, I can say message from sender will be shown here. Okay, so this is our initial state, and then now the most important part is coming. We will need to utilize our lifecycle functions of the React.js. What is the lifecycle function? I mean, there are couples of lifecycle functions in React.js. I mean, which is control every change and every state of the React.js. The component demand usually just execute once when we first mount our components to our HTML, okay? And then the component the update which is render and refresh every time when the state change. Please remember that the logic is the state change trigger the render to re-render the HTML. And then when the HTML is ready to change, it will trigger the component the update lifecycle functions. Okay, so this is how it works. Lifecycle functions in React.js is very useful in many aspects, especially the large scale programming. I can show you later in my real projects. I use it a lot as well. But right here, I just introduced these two most common ones. There are also a lot more other lifecycle functions. You can search it online, and definitely there are lots of such materials. Okay, so now I will use the component the update lifecycle functions. Whenever the state change and whenever the HTML is ready to be re-rendered, this function will be triggered. It can be used as a pooling stuffs to pool the message. Okay, because when we send the message for communication, there are two styles. One is a pushing style, one is the pooling style. So here we use the lifecycle functions to act as the pool function. Okay, so right here I would like to write something. Firstly, we will need to check if the message is coming or not. Here we use our properties again, because in our property, I will show you later. Property has own property. This one is called state props, if I remember is correct. So right here, if the message comes, this property will be right there. If the message is not come, this property is not there. Okay, so this one can be used to indicate if the message is coming or not. If it has the property, which means the message has come, and then we can extract the contents or values from the message. Okay, so if the message come already, and then we just need to set it in our state. We need to extract it and then set it in our state. Okay, so right here we just extract it. How to extract it? We access to it. Okay, this is a very easy way. That's why I say it's very easy way to implement the text, the message communication among the widgets. You don't need to write lots of Redux stuffs or lots of data source level, the very underlying levels of ArcGIS Experience Builder. Okay, you just need to access to this property. This property exists whenever the message comes. Okay, so when it comes, it get inside the if block, and the value can be extracted from it and then attached to our state. Okay, and then in our HTML, we just bind it with our state. Oh, see, it's very easy, very clear. Just I think it's less than 20 lines of code, right? In our receiver, we just set an initial state, and then in our React.js lifecycle functions, we treat it as a pooling functions to check if the message comes or not. If the message comes, this property will be exist. Okay, and then if it exists, then we can access to it and get the value and attach to our state. And finally, our HTML is bind with the state and will be rendered. Okay, the logic is very clear. It's one-click flow. So let's see how it goes. Let's refresh our application. And let's turn on our first widget, the sender, and turn on our second widget, the receiver. The initial message, the initial state is called message from sender will be shown here. Okay, this is our initial state and is bind with our HTML code. And okay, and next step, when we write something here, for example, miles come, and then I click the send button. Please don't blink and focus on the left hand side of the widgets. See, right here, I mean Miles Lee come. Okay, the message has already been sent to the receiver with the dispatch function from our sender, and also with the lifecycle function act as a pooling function to receive the message and retrieve the value of the message. Okay, we can do that again. I write another thing, for example, I make it. Okay, I click the send button, and then the value will be dispatched as a message and sent to the receiver, and the receiver just retrieve it, extract it, and show it on the HTML. So that's it. See, it's very easy. I mean, so together the sender and receiver maybe in total less than 30 lines or 40 lines of code. I mean, it's very easy ways to do that. Don't need to use a very complex own Redux solutions or the data source level solution. I mean, you don't need to use that. Just use the dispatch functions with the states and with the lifecycle functions of React.js. We can play the trick to make these widgets communications among multiple widgets easier. Okay, so that's it. And actually, I can also show you. I really use these methods in my real projects. Okay, I really use it. It's not just a game, or it's not just a easy, simple show. But I really use that. For example, in this is my second widgets in my real project. Is called top 6, and then right here in the lifecycle functions, I check. Of course, there are other things, other logics, but I check if the message comes or not. If it comes, I mean the properties exist, and then I can extract the value from these properties and set it with the state and do other logics. Okay, and in our sender, the sender right here is called filter. Okay, my first widgets. So in my first widgets, I also use a lot of dispatch message. For example, right here, it's not complete yet, so you can see the code is a little bit mixed and the structure is not that well structured. Later on, I will put them into other classes and extensions. Okay, so you can see right here, I use the dispatch message and send the values and send the context from these widgets to other widgets. We have lots of other widgets like top 6 widgets, the report widgets. Okay, send the different values with different parameters name. Okay, we send out the information from one widget to another to get the work done. Okay, this is my real project. I really use these kinds of things a lot. It's not just so what I show you is very practical. It's not just a game. It's not just a trick to make the YouTube. It's used in my real project. Okay, it's very useful. If you learn this way, later on when you need to do the projects with a multi-widgets communication, that will be very easy, trust me. So that's it for today. And then hopefully you like it, and you can definitely try this way in your real project. Once you need to send a message from one widget to another widget in ArcGIS Experience Builder, it will totally simplify many things and make your business logics and requirements more clear and make this happen easier. Okay, so that's it for today. Hopefully you like it, and please leave your comments under the video and let me see your fonts. And if you have any questions, please also feel free to ask. And I will also share the sample code, not this one. This one is belonging to my company, so I can't share my real project's code, but I can share today's demo's code to you, the receiver and the sender. I will share the links of this code to you, and which is easier for you to review it, probably. So that's it for today. Hopefully you like it, and see you next time, guys. Have a good week. Bye.